You are, so I'm delivering. In today's video, I'm taking you through the process of my latest make. It's a super easy, beginner-friendly pattern. It's the Olivia Dress by Style Arc. So a few weeks ago in my community post, I was talking about free patterns. Now this isn't a free pattern video, but it generated some conversation about you guys wanting actual sewing in my videos. I get it, I honestly do get it. For all the reasons I've stated in the past, that isn't the direction of my channel now. In my last video, which I will link down below, I talked about losing your sojo and some tips and tricks you can do for getting that sojo back. I'm so pleased it helped so many of you. One of my biggest obstacles with sewing and losing my sojo is there's so much process to get to the point of actual sewing. If I could just open a pattern, have some fabric and sew it, I'd be sewing all day every day. But that's not the case, whether it's putting PDF patterns together, making 12 after 12, which let's face it is basically making a garment, and then cutting out all the fabrics and then doing the actual sewing. Last year I talked to you in a video about productivity, about the fact that I was using a table that raises up and down. It was just a manual one that I had from IKEA, and I absolutely loved it while I was using it, but pretty much soon after the video, within a few weeks of the video actually, I ended up not using it anymore. And that's just because I was raising the table up and down manually and it was too much for me. So I started looking around on the market for a standing table, but I was so indecisive, and I was so happy when FlexiSpot reached out to me. So FlexiSpot, if you haven't heard of them, are a company that sell standing tables, and they have quite a wide range of products on their, on their channel, on their website. To be honest, at the stage my channel's at now, I do get a lot of requests for sending free stuff to me. For the most part, they're not stuff I would use, and certainly not anything that I would recommend to you guys. I'm very particular that anything I do share, and there may be products moving forward that I do share, but they will have use for you. And I'm very strict about that. So when FlexiSpot reached out to me and said they would love to send me a table, I was really happy with that idea. So bear in mind that this part of the video is ad PR or ad gifted, because they have sent me a table for the purposes of mentioning it on the channel. It is not a sponsored post. I have not received any money for this mention. So FlexiSpot sent me, quite quickly I might add, a table. It's the E8 that's on their website, which you can see on the screen now. Oh my God, I love it. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So it arrived and I started unpacking it and putting it together. Now I would recommend that if you do go ahead and purchase this, that you have someone who can help you, because it is a very heavy table. And I did do it on my own because my husband wasn't around to help me at the time, and I just was so eager to get it up and running. I did struggle because it was so heavy. The first thing that really came across to me was the quality of these products, of the actual materials. Comes with a top and a base and the electronic unit, and they were such good quality. I was really impressed actually, because you often think if someone wants to send you something for free that it's not going to be up to much, but that was really good. So I've had this table for over a month now, so I've had a bit of time to get used to it, start using it, etc. I've used it as top down when I'm filming my top down demonstrations on my other channel. I've used it for that. I've also used it for putting PDFs together, for cutting out, and for sewing as well. You can see my sewing machines are set up now. And I have to say, particularly for the project that I'm going to talk to you about today, this table has been a game changer. So it's no secret that I struggle with my energy levels and pain as well, and some numbness in fact. So if I'm sat at the table for quite a while and I want to stand up, because that like gets my blood flowing and just makes me feel less pain, I was able to do that. And also, like when I was cutting out fabric, it was so useful to have it at standing level, at waist level, so I could cut out with ease without having to bend over. That was the good news. Is that FlexiSpot currently have a sale on for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. You can get up to 50% off. Now, this is a considered purchase. It is not a cheap purchase, and getting 50% off, you're going to have quite a bit of savings. FlexiSpot have given me a link to share with you, and that is in my description box down below. Thank you to FlexiSpot for sending me this table out. I am very, very grateful for that. So the night of that community post that I was talking about earlier, something happened in me, something changed in me, and that was that I just felt this urge to sew, and I don't know where it come from. I really don't know where it come from. I was feeling pretty poorly that day and I wasn't up to much, so I was thinking, I need a pattern that is going to be minimal effort, so almost no changes. And I was thinking, wow, start off, get a pattern that I already have that is printed out, so a pre-printed pattern that I can just trace off and get to work. So I narrowed it down to 2 options. We've got the Olivia Dress, which is a woven dress, and it says it's medium to easy. Or we've got the Amy knit top. Now I do want to make this, but today I'm feeling this because I've got much more woven fabrics than I have knit fabrics, and this will be easy to wear. They'll both be easy to wear, but for whatever reason I've decided on this one. So with the dress decided, let's have a look at the details a bit closer up so you can see just how simple this dress is. It's got dolman sleeves, so that's going to be minimum effort, which is what I'm all about today. It's got a nice scoop neck, optional belt, which I won't make. It has a nice thick hem, which I'm all about. I absolutely love a thick hem. It comes above the knees, which means I'll be able to wear my leggings with it. And that is basically it. It looks like it's got a facing. It's a really good diagram of what we need to do. So it says there it's got a neck facing. You turn back and stitch the sleeve hem, connect the elastic ends, place elastic inside the casing and stitch the casing to the bodice. Sew the bodice and skirt waist seams together to create the casing, and then you do that. And then we've got the belt. So that's the inside. That is so helpful, don't you think? To be able to see the inside of your garment drawn out like that. I think that's the first time I've come across that. Absolutely love that. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, and one of them's a belt, which I won't do. Could not be more simple. So first things first, we need to have a look at the sizing of this pattern and correlate it with my own sizing in order to know a base point for where we need to start tracing off. So you see we've got the shoulder breadth, the upper arm girth, bust, waist, hips. So we need to take all that into account. My bust is 48, so we want 48 is a size 22. My waist is a 44, which would be a 24, and my hips are a 55, which puts me in a 26. So I need a bust 22, waist 24, hips 26. So now we've got the arm girth. My upper arm girth is 18.5. So now we run into a problem. It only goes up to 16 5/4. So we're going to need to address that on the pattern. So we're going to choose a 22 at the bust, a 24 at the waist, a 26 at the hip. We're going to adapt the sleeve, and then we can get sewing. Looking at the sizing, I realised I needed to widen the sleeve a little bit. Now there's a few different ways you can go about this, and this is what I decided to do. So what we've got here is my sleeve hem. So I'm doing size 22. You can see this blue point here, and this blue point here is the 2 ends of my sleeve hem. So that when you double that, you know, for the front and the back, it comes to 24 inches. Now, my arm girth at the top there is 18.5, which leaves me 5.5 inches to play with. So when you take away the seam allowance, which you've got a seam allowance up here, so 2 seam allowances there and 2 seam allowances here, that accounts to 1.5 inches because they're 3/8 each. So that leaves me with 4 inches of ease in this area. And I think that's going to be plenty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a twirl up in this exact measurement for a size 22 and see what it looks like. But before we do that, I need to grade between sizes. So I've traced around the size that I need because I am going to be tracing this onto another piece of paper. And it's just going to help me to see through the paper. But I just wanted to show you what I've done. So for this top part, it's a size 22. So I've just followed the line of the 22. And then down here, I needed to grade to a 24. So I've measured the length and realised this part is my waist. So I need the 24. So I've taken my ruler. I've started at the 24, just about an inch under the arm. I've basically gone from one size and graded it there, moved over to the smaller size, drawn a line, and that has graded me. And that's the only change I'm making for the first one. For the first one, I am just going to make it as is in the hope that it is going to fit quite well. And then I'll make that in a 12 fabric, and then we will move on and make one in my proper fabric. Grading between sizes is a super easy process, as you've just seen. Just remember, whatever you do to one piece, i.e. the front bodice, you need to do to the back bodice as well. And you also need to make sure the skirt pieces at the top are the same size as the bottom of the bodice pieces so that they go together. So let's talk about fabrics. Because of this pattern, it's got gathers at the waist and dolman sleeves. You're gonna want to use a floaty fabric. I do have a video on my channel where I talk about floaty fabrics, so I will link to that down below in the description box. But I had a couple of fabrics that I had in mind for this, so let's have a look. So this is a fabric I've had for about 3 years. I bought it from the textile centre. They won't have it anymore. It is actually ex-designer. So some designer shop had it, and then this was overspill. But it's very, very drapey, which is what we need. Looking on the pattern image, there's not much of a shoulder slope. So if you have a really firm fabric, such as a quilting cotton, something like that, then the shoulders are going to stick out. But in a nice drapey fabric, they're going to drape to the sleeves of the person. Because we've got gathers here, we also want a drapey fabric, because that elastic is going to bring it in and create a little bit of bulk. And the lighter the fabric, the less you're going to see that bulk. So this is why I am using this fabric. You can see just how drapey, how much movement this has, and this is what you want. So I've also got this fabric. This is a chiffony georgette type fabric. Very, very flowy, as we can see. Even more flowy than the last one. I've got 10 meters of this, so I can afford to mess this up. So I am going to make my first, we'll call it a wearable twirl, because I'm going to make the whole thing up in this just to see what it's like. So now we have to get to cutting out. What we're going to do is tape it down with some frog tape. So as you can see, we've got it pretty straight there. So now we need to fold this over until we get a straight line on here. So now we've got this side taped down, and we've got this side taped down underneath. So this is not going anywhere now. So now we can place our pattern piece on the fold and we can cut it out. And there's our back piece. That is a really good way of making sure that your cutting is accurate. I would say use pins. I didn't use pins in that process, but in addition to the tape, I would recommend that you use pins. So overall, I'm not that displeased with it. I can notice some differences that I need to change straight away. First off, look how wide this neck is. That's got to come in. We need to bring it in so it's more like that. Although there's no restriction on the arm and there is ease in there, I would like a little bit more. I think it's designed with a little bit more. I will be adding a little bit of ease into there. So if you see here, it rides up at the front, but it comes quite low at the back. And that is because I need an FBA. This is designed to have a D cup, but I'm bigger than a D cup, and so that's why it's riding up at the front. So rather than go through the hassle of doing an FBA on a non-darted top, I'm just going to add some length at the centre front. So let's get on and make those changes and see how it looks. The first job is to remove some excess out of here. The first job is to work out where the apex is. So measuring down from the shoulder down to where your apex is, as you measured on yourself, mine's about 13.5. Just draw a circle around that to show you where my apex is. Now we need to pick somewhere around here in order to draw a line. Doesn't matter massively where it is, but I'm going to do it about there. The main idea is that we're bringing the shoulder in. Draw a line from your apex to that mark. As my sleeves are a little bit on the tight side and I want to open them up a bit, I'm also going to draw a line about midway on my sleeves and draw another line to the apex. You can see I've got it on a hinge here. All you want to do is bring it in there by however much. Now I need to bring mine in by about 1 inch, which means 1/2 inch because this is on the fold. Put a mark there, 1/2 inch in, and that is where we will overlap it. For now I'm going to use some washi tape. Then you just fold it over that mark you made. And if we turn it around, this is the sleeve side, it's opened it up a bit, so we need to put a bit of paper underneath. Sellotape that down. As you can see here, this doesn't line up, so we need to make that line up. So you're using your curve or your plate or whatever it is you're using, you want to match this part up with this part, following the natural curve as much as possible. So now we just got to cut that. What this has done is we've closed up the neckline and we've opened up the sleeve all at the same time. I need to extend the centre front because it rides up. I probably need an FBA, but I'm not doing an FBA. I actually need 3 inches at the bottom, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 inches. And remember, this is at the centre front, not the side seam, just the centre front. It will grade to nothing at the side. So I've just done a curved line there, like that. I live for the day, I don't have to make these adjustments. So something else I want to do is extend the sleeve out a little bit. So this is personal taste, we don't have to do this, but basically I want to. So I just want to extend this down 1 inch. So I think we are done. My beautiful untouched back piece. So I want to bring the centre back up by 1 inch, and that is because we have a bit of a sway back, and this is just the quick and dirty way to get rid of that. So we just draw a line like that. So So we've taken it up an inch at the centre front, tapering to nothing at the side seam. So because we opened up this sleeve in the front, we need to open it up in the back. We're doing the same as we did on the front. So the reason we are doing this on the back, despite there being no actual apex, is because we need to bring the neckline in and open up the sleeve so the front and the back pieces will match. So here we are, this is our back piece done. So something I want to do is walk the seams. Because I've made a lot of changes to the front and back, I need to make sure the shoulder seam is the same on the front and the back, and the side seam. We just check it to make sure it's the same. So the front bodice is slightly bigger by about 2/8, so we can true that. So here we are, I've adapted my front and my back piece. So I've brought the necklines in, I've extended the sleeves out, put a bit of ease in the sleeves, and I've extended the centre front and reduce the centre back. So now I need to cut out and sew up a second toile. Yes, you heard me right, a second toile. Hopefully this will be a wearable toile, and then we can get on and work on the skirt as well. So here we are back again with my second toile. So you can see I have brought in the neckline, and that looks quite a bit different. I would like it a little bit in. I'd like it in a little bit more, so I will take that in again, but I'm not going to do another toile. Here's my sleeve, doesn't look much different, but under here I've got quite a bit of room. At the centre front I lengthened it by 2 inches and reduced the back by 1 inch to make it level. Still not totally level, but I'm happy with it as it is. So I've perfected the front bodice and the back bodice. So they are good to go. I've also created or drafted some facings. So I have a video showing you how to draft your own facing, so I didn't go into detail with that one. So that's the top and the facings done. We just need to do the skirt. So in terms of this skirt, this is the skirt pattern. It's going to be so simple. So at the waistline, we're going to start at size 24, which is what I graded the bottom of the bodice out to. Down for like an inch or so, and then I'm grading out to a 26, and we'll go all the way down to the bottom. So what I'm going to do now is trace off this pattern onto some paper. So much for choosing a pattern that doesn't require too much work. Oh, it took loads and loads of work for me, for my body shape. It might fit you straight out of the packet, but for me, it certainly didn't. Now I've got my 2 toiles made. I'm mostly happy with how it looks. I can go ahead and start cutting out my fashion fabric. Hooray! Yes, at last I can cut out my fashion fabric. So I cut out my fashion fabric just as I had done with my toile fabric, using the tape and the weights and things. And this time I had to also do some block fusing for the facing pieces. So now we have to cut out our facing pieces. Rather than cut around these pieces on fabric that is really fluid and is going to end in mistakes, what we're going to do is we're going to block fuse. I've cut out a piece of fabric that is big enough for both of my fabric pieces, and I've cut out a piece of interfacing that is the same size. What we want to do is put our interfacing with the glue side up, and what we're going to do is glue this whole piece onto this whole piece of fabric. So when it's done, it's going to give us a much stiffer piece of fabric, and that means there'll be no warping when we do go ahead and cut our facing pieces. So now this fabric has been interfaced, we need to cut it out. We have our perfectly cut out facing. and it's not stretched out because we block fused. And with all that, it is time to finally start sewing. So I really started to get excited at this point. So that tells me that I have not lost the love of sewing. It's just all the build up towards getting to this point. As you can see, there was a lot of work in that. So I set up my serger and my sewing machine on my lovely new table and got to work. So I started off by stay stitching the curve seam on the neck, on the front and the back to stop it stretching out. This is a really, really important first step, because if that stretches out, then your facing isn't going to fit. It's going to gape. You're going to have all sorts of problems. So that's what I did first of all. Then I went on and sewed the shoulder seam and under the sleeve seam. We had no sleeve to worry about, so that was all good and dandy. I did sew straight on the serger for the side seam and the shoulders. And I do have on one side, you can see, it's come undone. I need to sew that up again before it goes through the washing machine. So I would recommend on a fabric like this that you do sew it on the sewing machine and then sew it on your serger if you're going to use a serger. So next it came time to sew those facing pieces. So I sewed them together at the shoulders. I finished the outer edge, which I just serged. I always just serge it and leave it. Some people turn it under and top stitch, but I don't do that. I'm quite happy with how that looks. I like to get the facing done as soon as possible, because although I have stay stitched, it's not a complete deterrent to stretching out. So once the facing's done, I know it's not going to stretch out at all. So once I did that, I clipped the curves and then I edge stitched to make it stay flat on the inside of the neckline. I haven't mentioned it, but I have been pressing all throughout the whole process of sewing, which is so important. So now I moved on to sewing the skirt piece, and that was super simple. It doesn't have any pockets, so it was just sewing the two side seams, and then I sewed the skirt to the bodice, making sure to leave enough seam allowance that I can create a casing for the elastic. Once I inserted the elastic with a safety pin, pinned it, I tried it on to see how it was. I ended up taking another 5 inches off the elastic because it was just too loose. Other than that, I was really happy with what I was seeing. Obviously, it still needed to be hemmed. I was happy. So now came the time to hang it up and let it drop. So in case you don't know, when you sew something like viscose, which I think that's probably what this is, or it might be polyester, probably polyester because it didn't iron too well. When you make a dress, especially if it's made in cotton as well, something like that, any woven, I would hang it just for a day or two, just to see if the hem will drop. So what you'll find often is on the bias, which is usually around the side of the legs or near the side seams, you will see that the fabric will drop and then the hem will be uneven. So it's better to do that before you hem it, because then you can trim it up. So that's what I did. I let it hang for a day or so while I was working on another garment, I might add. Yes, I'm in the middle of a test for a pattern company. That won't be released for quite some time, but I went and worked on that while this was hanging. So a few days later, I was able to come back to this one, and all that needed doing was hemming the skirt and hemming the sleeves. Now this fabric wasn't the easiest to sew with. Oh my God, my facing was hanging out all that time. This fabric wasn't the easiest to sew with, but by taking precautions, I was able to sew it really, really well. And for sewing the hem, I just increased the stitch from 2.5 to 3, and that seemed to give me a much better result. So once it was done, I gave it a final press and then I tried it on. So overall, I'm really, really happy with this dress. When I was starting out, I was thinking, I'm making all these changes, I'll make lots of versions. I don't know if that is going to be the case just because I don't know where I would wear these dresses. I'm used to wearing jersey, so this dress feels a lot more formal than I'm usually used to wearing, especially around the house. I feel quite dressed up in it actually. What I might try is to make this in a jersey fabric. Now I do have a jersey fabric, let me show it to you. And I have 3 meters of it, so I want to make something up with this very soon. But thinking about it, this fabric is going to be far too heavy with the gathers and the dolman. The dolman wouldn't matter so much because with a stretchy fabric it would fall down, but the gathers might be a bit much for this fabric. So I'm going to have to be on the lookout for a lighter weight jersey fabric, aren't I, for this dress. I think the dress really does lend itself to a jersey fabric as well as a woven, even though it is designed for a woven fabric, because it is it's just so relaxed, and you've got the elasticated waist, so you've got a bit of ease. You may want to size down for the upper body if you're going to do it in a jersey, but that's something I fancy giving a try actually, because I think a jersey dress I'm much more likely to wear day to day. So don't forget to let me know what you thought of the dress down in the comments below. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Do you like the colour? I love the colour. I think it's so vibrant. I need to hold my hands up and say I've made a summer dress in the middle of winter, but come next summer this is going to get a lot of wear when I'm out and about, I think. And don't forget to check out FlexiSpot. The link is downstairs in that description box. If you like this video and you'd like to see more like it, do share the video out, like it, do all the things, because the more views this video gets, the more I can justify making this kind of effort in the videos, and the more it will motivate me, to be honest, into making those videos. If you got extra benefit out of this video, I would, as always, ask you to consider purchasing a coffee for me. Until next time, which will be an unboxing of a machine. Yes, you heard it right. I am so excited. I will see you soon. Happy sewing. Bye for now.